Last video of this week. Actually, I shouldn't say that because we have our interview tomorrow. Actually, I don't know when I'm going to put out the interview, to be honest, because I
We
think that
have an interview coming out. That's the
y-
big thing.
yes, the big news is the interview's coming out. I would think that we would probably want to get the interview out quicker than saving it for like the end of the week type thing, but we'll see. We'll go to the drawing board. We'll sit down. We'll brainstorm. We'll go to the headquarters for under further review, and we'll kind of map out where we're going to
We
put
have
it.
a huge office in Manhattan that we all
Yeah, exactly.
during the day.
So we'll sit down and we'll be like, you know what? On a Wednesday at 3:30, that's when our episodes do the best. So we're
Yep.
going to put out this interview on Wednesday at 3:30.
And all our assistants will run to get it done. So,
Exactly. So who knows what the order is going to be? But in terms of, but by now you're going to know what the order is, just because this one's probably going to be later in the week. But pecking order, I would think our first two that we recorded are probably going to be early because they kind of naturally went together. But we'll see. But this one, Neighbors, Malik Neighbors, I want to talk about. And if I'm looking down at my phone, it's because I'm reading the article because I want to get it right. I don't know what the concern level for this Malik Neighbors surgery that he just had. It was his second surgery. So, reading off of Bleacher Report, I'm not going to give them the credit because Dan Duggan from The Athletic was the one who reported it. But Bleacher Report wrote, after undergoing surgery to repair his ACL and meniscus in October, New York Giants star wide receiver Malik Neighbors underwent another operation in recent weeks. Per Dan Duggan of The Athletic, Neighbors had multiple surgery or had surgery multiple weeks ago to clean up scar tissue around the knee that was causing stiffness. The latest procedure is not expected to affect his recovery timeline, according to Dugan, and the hope remains that he will be ready by the start of the season. Neighbors suffered the torn ACL and partially torn meniscus in September after the team's Week 4 win against the Los Angeles Chargers, which is crazy to think about what the Giants' season was, even though they beat the Chargers and Eagles early on and then it just totally flopped. But I think that was the big thing was outside of it being a torn ACL, it was also a torn meniscus. So that's when the concern came in that he tore multiple parts of the body. But there was a quote saying, I guess it was Ian Rappaport, as far as why it's taken a month between the injury and surgery, there's something called prehab, which is essentially when players strengthen and stretch the area around the knee just to make rehab better when he eventually has surgery. So we're dating back to because it was it was a month before he got the initial surgery, and people were questioning like what's going on. Are we kind of misleading another player here? But general manager Joe Schoen updated Neighbors' timeline in February, saying that the hope is for him to be ready for training camp in July. He's trending to hopefully be ready for training camp. Schoen told reporters things can change, but that's the hope. I don't like the stiffness of the knee, but I don't know too much about these ACL recoveries. And I don't know if this is like a natural thing that happens where over time, like when you're preparing for a season, and I'm sure he's going full speed getting ready for the season. We see it like these athletes they're recovering from injury faster than ever. I mean, Aaron Rodgers coming back from his, what did he tear? Um,
the Achilles.
the Achilles. And I know there's been other, Tatum in the NBA. He came back way earlier. So like athletes are like really challenging the timelines now, to return. And like, I know like I've had friends that I played sports with. I've been watching, we've both been watching sports for as long as we've been alive. And like ACL injuries usually take over a year, I would say. Recovery timeline, like a successful one. But if Neighbors is going to be ready for training camp by July, it does feel like a little bit of a rushed timeline. It feels like, if he got injured in October, week 4 is probably October, end of September, then
Yeah, first or second week. Yeah.
he's coming back like a good 2-3 months before he probably should be. But it's a tough situation because you want to compete from the start. The Giants for the past 10 plus years have just been really, really bad the first few weeks, and it's round out their whole season when they start off this way. Like, those 1-2 starts, those 0-3 starts. It's so hard to recover from those types of starts to the season. And I think the Giants just want their star piece because we saw what happened when they were still like respectable when they had, before some of the other injuries that happened after Neighbors. But I mean, like, I don't know, like that that was the injury that was like, shoot, like, what are we gonna be after this injury? Like,
I mean, he's the engine that makes that offense go. So, I
yeah,
mean, anything after that was just sputtering. Respectable, but sputtering.
yeah, like Skattebo's the one that like it was like we're waving our white flags, like the season's over because like Neighbors goes down. I think they beat the like he got injured. I thought he got injured in the Eagles game. That article said the Chargers game. So
Yeah, no, I know it was early in the game, and they still won the game, didn't they?
yeah, because maybe you know what, that article's probably right. So it was the Chargers game, but I think Skattebo had a strong game. I think Dart had a strong game, and they end up beating the Chargers. And then they come out and they beat the Eagles because I remember all those post game interviews. Maybe it was like Thursday night football. I know it was a night game, Sunday night, something like that. Monday night. I know it was like a prime time game. But yeah, once the injury on the road against the Eagles happened with Skattebo, that's when it was like done. But, like, in terms of, like, Neighbors, like, what he can do, like, I'll never forget the catch he had against the Cowboys where the defender was covering his vision, and he just threw his hands out, and he came up with the touchdown in the back of the end zone. I mean, this guy makes things happen when they like, 95% of receivers probably couldn't do what he just did. Like, when we were solely college football in the fall, we would talk about those 50-50 balls turning into 70-80, 70-30, 80-20 balls with like Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and how valuable that was for a first year quarterback in Julian Sayin. It was essentially the same thing with Jaxson Dart, where like having that cushion. Imagine what Jaxson Dart could have been if Neighbors stayed healthy the entire season. Where if he was under duress or like pressure started to come and the pocket started to fold, he didn't have to take off. Instead, he could just throw it up to Neighbors and
You probably avoid some of those concussions too, being
yeah,
completely transparent.
yeah. So Neighbors is to me, Neighbors outside of Dart is the most important piece of this offense, and you really want him out on the field. So I get like I get the premature trying to make him play in July for training camp, and probably I don't know if they will really make him suit up in preseason
I
games.
would be shocked unless he demands it. But I mean, also depending on what's the reason for the cleanup. Like, so typically it's because you can't flex your knee
Hmm.
because you've got scar tissue buildup. You're in pain still, so like you can't do the rehab because you're in pain, or there's just you have long term damage. I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume we can remove that because I feel like if he had long term damage, we would have known. Like that'd be something you can't keep. It would come out somehow. So I'm going to assume it was probably more of he probably just has some people's body just has more scar tissue and his body created more. And it was just affecting the flexibility of the knee. And I think that this is probably I got to go on a limb. I'm going to say it. It's probably a nothing burger in all honesty.
Yeah,
But it's news nonetheless because you have a guy that missed a lot of time and you're excited to see him back on the field and and not just Giants fans, like football fans in general want to see this guy out there playing. So I think this probably gets something a little bigger than what it actually is, I'm assuming it's a nothing burger. I do think he comes back in July. He'll be he'll start his training camp, probably on a lower output, which is acceptable and understandable. I would be shocked if I see him in the preseason. I know a lot of people will clamor he's got to build up that timing with Dart and all. No, he doesn't. Put him out there when it matters because God forbid this happens. God forbid you rush him out there, you put him on the field in the preseason, gets hurt. Now we're having a whole different conversation.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm going to say this is I personally think this is a nothing burger. If it was if he had long term damage, they wouldn't be able to keep it. It would have came out. Hey, at some point Malik Nabers isn't healing right. So I think this is probably just to help speed up recovery, get him out there working harder on his knee, and allow him to push hard. So yeah, I think this is a nothing burger. I think that Giants fans have nothing to be worried about, and I think that he's going to be out there week one and he's going to do his thing. You just got to hope that he stays healthy.
yeah,
There is like a level of these aren't like injuries, especially to athletes like him. And his injury wasn't anything that was soft either. I mean, he had a very serious, the ACL and the MCL, like that takes a toll on you. Like a piece of you is gone now, regardless of how you recover. You're never 100% there. So that's really the biggest thing is protecting. He's got to protect himself, and the Giants have to protect him. But yeah, I think this is a nothing burger. I think that it's just routine. I think that and if they have the best medical staffs in the world. I'm sure they're watching him like a fine tooth comb.
Been too many injuries. I'm kind of like scarred from these Giants injuries. I start to question the medical staff for the Giants franchise, but
I get it.
I mean, this is a pro franchise. Ideally, they should have the best of the best.
But I also have to assume they're probably going outside of just the Giants doctors to take care of him. You know, whether it be like Dr. Andrews in Alabama, who everyone goes to, or whatever the situation is. I have to assume that there's, and even his own people. I'm willing to bet you Malik Nabers is his own people that are telling him, hey, I think you're okay. Hey, I don't think you're okay. So
Yeah.
I honestly think as a Giants fan, like, you just have to let people say what they want to say in this situation. If there was a real issue and this was like a legitimate long-term thing, I think you would know. I really do feel that way.
Bubble wrap up until July or August, just to make sure he doesn't get dinged up or anything. But the concern for me is like we're not in the week of a game day, so like there won't be clear messaging with what this injury is, because like if this was the regular season and I don't know his knees started to act up a little bit and they were like, all right, like, we're just gonna watch it. He's questionable for this game. At least we know, like, all right, the Giants, he's 50. You don't know if he's going to play. Like, he's questionable. But right now, it's like, I think the Giants have been kind of quiet since this surgery. It happened a few weeks ago, and a reporter's just finding out about it. So I don't know if that's because the Giants were like, all right, it is like you're saying, it's a nothing burger. We move on with our lives. Or if the Giants were like, all right, we don't want panic to go out there. We don't want people knowing that like maybe this injury needed some cleanup because his recovery is not going as planned. But according to the reports, and we're going to believe what the reports are right now, they said the timeline shouldn't be impacted by this second surgery. So that's what you hope. But it makes me think. It really does. I remember in college, I helped someone move, and um, I'm sitting there with like one of their lamps, and it like accidentally slipped out of my hands, and it like cracked on the floor. And the person came running into the room, and then they were like, "Yeah, I don't really care about that lamp," and they just threw it off to the side. I feel like this situation's like he's not the lamp in this situation. Like if he has an injury, like this is a young wide receiver in the league, and we saw what like receivers or injuries could do to receivers. Like Odell Beckham went through injuries, and he's never
Yeah.
the same wide receiver again. And I would say if he wasn't as exciting as what Neighbors is, he was more exciting when he was on the Giants. And I don't want a rushed comeback because I like while I'm gonna always be like that excited, I think I deserve to be excited right now as a Giants fan. Harbaugh is my coach. They had a very good draft. I thought they brought in some good pieces during free agency. I thought there were some guys on the team that showed some promise last season too. I think I was a little more optimistic about the play on the field just because, than other Giants fans, just because like a lot of these games came down to the fourth quarter where they blew leads. So, one or two pieces added to that roster, or you don't have all these injuries and they're winning some of those games in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden they're a 500 football team. So I I personally believe the Giants could be a competing franchise this season, but at the same time, like I'm thinking about the long term success of this team, and like you have a quarterback who's in year two, you have your most likely your starting running back in Skattebo who's in year two. Another one you don't know how he's going to return because that injury was brutal.
I would be more concerned about his injury than I would about Neighbors,
Yeah,
if I'm being honest. Because I mean, not that Neighbors wasn't ugly. I mean, an MCL and an ACL, that's your whole structure, right, in your knee. But
hmm,
Scats, I mean, that was, a displaced fracture.
yeah,
I mean, you hear horror. Not that we've heard anything, obviously, but look at Alex Smith, who had a displaced fracture. They almost had to amputate his leg. Like there's so much. I think that injury is far scarier as a fan. I think, and towards like that truly takes. Like there's no cadaver they can put in there to fix that. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
with Neighbors, I don't know what they did, but I'm assuming it was cadaver and ACL and whatever they do for the MCL, and you know it heals, your body either, accepts it, and that's that. With Scat, I mean, they had to rebuild with the pieces that were there, and that's scary. So, I mean, as a Giants fan, I think that I haven't seen a lot of this, but as a Giants fan, I think that's the thing that would be more concerning to me, because I do think that Skattebo showed enough to be, probably your starter now. I think that he offers a little more than Tracy. Singletary, whatever. But like, what did that take out of him? Look at Nick Chubb, for instance. I think this Nick Chubb was a displaced, wasn't it? Or was it MCL, ACL?
I think he was ACL too. Yeah,
Well, either way, Chubb was literally, it was him and Derrick Henry were your two best running backs in the NFL. And then he had his injury. And what is he now? You
Yeah.
know, that's scary. Like that, so
The
yeah,
only
that one to me is more concerning than Neighbors.
the only thing with Skattebo is he's just like an absolute freak and psycho.
And he's young. He's young.
He's young too, but like to what you were saying, like the shiftiness of what you need and versatile play that you need as a running back in the NFL, like you can like that injury, like you can repair it to the point where like there's questions when you have that type of injury if you're going to be able to walk the same again. And
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a long-term give and take with his injury specifically.
yeah. So like how like is he just and he kind of was this, but is he just going to be the running back where like he puts his head down and gets you like 3 or 4 yards? Like is he ever going to return to the type of running back where he can break away for like a 20+ yard run? That's my question there because I want that type of running back on my offense. I respect a guy who's going to wear down the defense, but the whole point of wearing down the defense is to eventually get to a point where you can in like the third or fourth quarter break away
Break free.
for that bigger run. But like this Giants team, they have like what we were saying for the Jets last episode. It goes the same for the Giants. Like they went out and got Isaiah Likely. So Isaiah Likely is going to be the main tight end now. I think he's going to really ball out on this Giants team. Theo Johnson actually turned it on when he was one of the main targets during the second half. So like that's two good tight ends right there. Now you got Neighbors and Malachi Floyd, who they just drafted out of Notre Dame. And you still have, you just brought in two free agent wide receivers in Darnell Mooney and Austin, who are nice pieces. And now you got Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy and Singletary still on the teams in the backfield. So you kind of have like a three-headed attack in the backfield. So there's plenty of pieces, and you address the offensive line. So why wouldn't you be excited? But like you can't have these injuries setting you back. So I don't know. I cross my fingers this is nothing, like we've been saying. I don't know what the long term is going to be. Hopefully, Neighbors can return to being the exciting player that he is, and you almost bank on him being that because without a star player, like this offense could still be good without Neighbors, but Neighbors definitely puts them over the top, But yeah, they have to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing, and they couldn't do that last season. Dart has to stay on the field. Neighbors has to return to close to 100%. We need Skattebo to be what he was during those first few games as a rookie before the injury. There's a lot of what ifs with the Giants that almost makes you feel uneasy going into the season too. But there's a lot of excitement that you know, kind of blankets those what ifs in some ways. We had two other topics. I don't know. Do we even get into them or do we just leave them be?
I leave him for now. I think that was pretty good segment there.
Yeah.
Giants fans should be excited. I think there should be some concern for Scat. Is he going to be ready for week one? It seems like it's optimistic that he will be, but just for the sake of football, as a football fan, I hope that he comes back strong and we get to see what we saw last year because he's good for the game.
Yeah.
His play style is not indicative of a long-term running back, but if we only got a small sample size of him, I'd like to get like 4 good years of hard-nosed running. And it would be so unfortunate if, a severe ankle injury takes that away from us as football fans. Neighbors not concerned about Skattebo. I got some concerns, and even Dart, I have concerns as well.
Yeah.
I really wish that Dart would play from the pocket and not take the hits. It's not a tough guy league. You don't have to be the toughest guy on the field. Your availability is your best ability. So
For sure.
for Giants fans, I think you should be super optimistic, super happy. I think you got the pieces. I like Dart. Like I said, I would love to see him learn the game a little more from the pocket, which I don't think that's going to happen with Harbaugh because if you look the way Harbaugh played Lamar, I think if anything, we're probably going to see more runs from Dart. But yeah, so I don't know how long Dart is with the way he plays. I mean, he's already had 2 concussions, I think it was. So that's scary. But yeah, I mean, listen, even if it's only a 3 or 4 year window, it should be a really exciting 3 or 4 year window for Giants. I mean, seriously, because you've got legit players that are fun to watch, and that's coming from a Jets fan. Like you guys, like it's fun watching them play, and I don't want to be deprived of it because a scoped knee keeps Neighbors out, and a bad ankle injury his rookie year saps us of Skattebo.
Yeah. And also like they've embraced the New York lifestyle. Like you see Dart everywhere. He's wearing all the designer clothes. He's got the pretty blonde girlfriend and he kind of has like the like I don't give a shit attitude too. So like you kind of need that for New York. And Skattebo is just like the brother that's just like
He reminds me of Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know why.
But like the thing for me with the Giants, and I'll be quick with this, for years, like it went deeper than who you were putting in the starting lineup and the X's and O's and everything and the talent on the roster. It was the locker room vibes, and we've had some bad head coaches, so like X's and O's definitely factored in too. But it like you could tell these players were upset with the direction of the franchise and all the losing that was happening. It popped up during interviews, and I think that's a big reason why Dexter Lawrence isn't with the team anymore. Is for the past 2-3 years, Dexter Lawrence has been pretty vocal about wanting to win and not being happy with how the franchise has been treated, I guess. But then last year, you have like these two Bash brothers show up to training camp, and all of a sudden, it's like while like Skattebo was what a fourth round pick, and Dart
Yep.
was drafted at the it was like a surprise draft pick at the end of the first round. It felt like there was like a direction for the first time in a while. And then these like you're starting Russ Wilson for a few weeks. Skattebo wasn't even touching the field. And the Cowboys game, Skattebo gets a chance. I think he scores a touchdown. And then I forget what game Russ Wilson just looked terrible in, but the next week Jaxson Dart finally starts, and the rest was history. Dart just completely takes over. Like he's making completions that a rookie quarterback shouldn't be completing, but he can also run the ball, and he's tough and hard nosed. People are getting upset because there's been so many concussions, and there's only so many concussions that one man can take. So like you got to limit that. But the excitement that these two just brought to this franchise, and then you can tell like they're close, that close knit community they're trying to build with this team, I think, because when Skattebo got injured, the first person that was there and was visibly upset was Jaxson Dart. That's his brother now. And I think they fight for each other, that they want to win together. They're in the same backfield together. So like we were talking about this in the group chat today, like the foundation of teams, like the Jets conversation we had. I think the foundation of the Giants shifted also last season. And for the first time you had guys that like just love the game of football, do it because they don't do it because of their paycheck, while the paycheck's probably nice. Like they do it because they want to win and they want to build a legacy. And I think Neighbors is the same way because he's been visibly upset the past few years, and I think he's starting to come to terms. Last season was like the first time I saw him come to terms that he's a New York Giant because I think his rookie season he was like, "Yeah, I would love to go play with Daniels again." You know, like that. Those comments came out. Um,
I just didn't. I just want to say I didn't love what he said during the draft about Reese though. Like that really wasn't a good look.
he
Just to
came
be
back
clear.
afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I assumed he would, but
He apologized and he said it didn't come out the way he wanted it to come out.
he was doing that with who? It was with who was that with
Caleb
that he
Downs,
did
I
that?
think he wanted.
No, who was he doing the podcast with or whatever?
Yeah, he did it with who was the guy that was with PFF?
Either way, I didn't see the context of it, but I'm wondering if he was goaded into it type thing. But
Who does the draft exchange with Rogers? What's his name? Trevor something starts with an S, but
Skidem, something like that. Skidem.
something like that.
Anyway, yeah, but Neighbors is starting to round out. I just, like I said, you got to cut down on the silly comments because that's what used to get Odell into trouble, I think. But, and
The LSU receivers, man.
they're divas. They're divas. And you know what? That's what you sign up for when you draft one from LSU. But they usually end up being really good.
Yeah, and Neighbors.
They really do. If you want politically correct receivers, you go to Ohio State.
That is true. Not many of them add too much trouble to the league.
Half of them don't say a word. You don't know anything about them.
Yeah,
Like, I'm gonna, like, not to change subjects, but like, how much do we know about Marvin Harrison Jr.?
nothing.
Olave, do we know anything about him? Like, I don't know anything about Chris Olave.
Terry McLaurin too. Like, what do you?
Nothing about him.
Yeah,
He's Scary Terry. Why? I have no idea.
I'm sure there's a reason behind the scary Terry, unless they just
Yeah, I don't know. Garrett Wilson, I think, is probably the most vocal of the group.
vocal
And
in a good
even
way.
then, what?
Vocal in a good way, though.
Yeah, but I was about to say, even then, I don't think we know anything about Garrett Wilson outside of like
Yeah,
him. You know, he's very team front. But yeah, it's funny. I just like that because LSU's they're both really good receiver trees, and if you're going to draft a receiver in the NFL,
Yeah.
it's hard to press to believe you're taking it from somebody else outside of LSU or Ohio State. But the contrast of those two guys, and it's cool because it's in the city now. You've got Malik Nabers on one side, you got Garrett Wilson on the other. Like, and you know, in their own rights, they're both good for the city. So yeah. Anyway, just a weird tidbit.
and you hope they stay healthy this year.
I really, yes, it's good for New York football.
we were almost stripped of a season because both those guys were hurt.
I mean, just call it what it was. It became miserable. It wasn't fun. It just, not that the Jets were promised to be anything great or the Giants, but
Yeah.
we want to see our players play. It's okay that we suck. I think we could both agree, but we want to see our players play.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the Jets games to watch Donnie Mitchell catch passes. I'm just being honest.
Yeah. And also like New York, like any sport, the sport is better when New York teams are doing well because New York fans go
Suck
up.
it, Philly. Suck it, Philly. You're not what makes the world go round. We are.
I'm hoping the Cavs held on tonight. I don't know if they did. Oh, it's tied one. Oh, it's going into to overtime. About to put that game on. All right, that's a segment. Time to watch
Yep.
Cavs versus Pistons.
Have a good night.